Hey, how's it going, everyone? Bass here, and you know what time of the week it is? It is time to go over the PFF grades for the Green Bay Packers versus the Pittsburgh Steelers here in Week 4. We'll be going over the winners on offense and defense, or the high grades, and then also the losers, the low grades, on both the offense and defense as well. So obviously, the Green Bay Packers got that win there in Week 4, 27-17 against the Pittsburgh Steelers out in Green Bay, moving their record on the season to 3-1. And I don't want to waste any time, so let's bring the screen up and let's start with the offensive winners. And first, we have Randall Cobb. And Randall Cobb finally got incorporated more into this offense. Before this week, he really didn't do much. I think he had only a few catches on the year. Some games he went even without a target, without a catch. And I kind of had a complaint about him. I said, well, it's not really his fault because he's getting half the snaps of what Allen Lazard and MVS were getting. But before this game, when MVS went on IR, I said it in my injury update video. I said, expect Randall Cobb to be incorporated much more into this offense and expect a big game from Randall Cobb. And that's exactly what Cobb did. He had his highest grade on PFF ever in his entire career. So that's insane. He had a 90.5 overall grade. And by the way, PFF, I don't know why you have him with the Texans jersey on. You got to switch that up. But he had 5 receptions on 6 targets for 69 yards. Nice. And 2 touchdowns. So Randall Cobb just, out of nowhere. I mean, obviously we know what Randall Cobb could do, but him being 31 years old, we didn't know how much he had left in the tank, but had a killer game. So we know Randall Cobb was always that premier slot receiver, and this game was no different. He took 92% of his snaps in the slot, and he seemed to always be open on third down. He seemed to always have Aaron Rodgers looking his way on those crucial third downs, and he seemed to always be open and make the catch and convert the first down and move the sticks. So I think it's pretty clear Randall Cobb, the 31-year-old man here, has some juice left in him, and he's definitely going to be or have to be more part of this offense like he was last week, so long MVS is out. And I think even when MVS comes back, I still think they should incorporate him more. It's clear as day that he's a great slot receiver. They had to keep Adams out wide more this game, obviously with MVS being out, but it's clear Randall Cobb still has a part in this offense. Next up on the offensive winners list, we have A.J. Dillon, who had his best game all year and led the Green Bay Packers in rushing yards. He had the second highest offensive grade for the Packers, right below Randall Cobb. A.J. Dillon had an 84.8 overall grade and a receiving grade of a 67.2. A.J. Dillon had 15 carries for 81 yards, which is a 5.4 yards per carry. He had 40 yards after contact, and he had 1 reception for 16 yards. And just like Randall Cobb, before this game in my injury update video, I said expect more A.J. Dillon. I know he was on the injury report in the middle of the week with that back injury, but Matt LaFleur said he was ready to go, and I said expect more A.J. Dillon because Aaron Jones was on the injury report with that ankle injury, and who knows how much he can push that ankle, and that's exactly what we saw. Aaron Jones didn't have the greatest of games. Both him and Dillon had 15 rushes, but Dillon, on the other hand, had almost double the yards of Aaron Jones. And I really liked how the Packers were using this split backfield look. Now, obviously, we know what Aaron Jones can do a defense when he's on, so I kind of like the approach, stick with the hot hand. If A.J. Dillon's running hard and gaining, 6 yards per carry, I say keep him in. And if Aaron Jones is catching a pass every other play and running it for 15 yards and then taking a run for 8 yards and really just beating up that defense, keep him in. I love the Thunder and Lightning approach, the split backfield approach. Keep these guys healthy, have them both ready, full force for the later in the year and potentially playoffs. All right, so now switching the pace to the negative side of the offense, the losers or the low grades for this week's game. And first up is Josiah DeGura. He had a pretty awful game. Former third-round tight end, really hasn't showed much in his career yet. He had his worst grade on offense by far, with a 29.2 overall grade, a 35.1 run block grade, also 1 penalty, and he didn't receive a single target. And generally just a bad showing by Josiah DeGura here after Daphne's absence, after Daphne was put on IR. Josiah was kind of taking that H-back role, and he just didn't play well. He had his most snaps all year with 24, but it was easily, like I said, his worst game. And you can even see here, week 1, he only had 5 snaps, but a 66.9. Week 3, he had 17 snaps with a 53.0, and then, which isn't even good on its own, and then it dropped this week, as I said, with that horrible 29.2. And don't really be confused by this 70.0 pass block grade, considering he only had 2 snaps that were pass blocking. I saw Josiah DeGura missing many blocks in the run game, and just overall, he just really didn't have a good game. Hopefully, he can turn it around, or else we just got to wait for Dominic Daphne to come back. Next up on the losers list, he's becoming more and more frequent, sadly, is Bryce Newman. Yet again, he's on the loser segment for the 3rd time in a row now. He was, again, the lowest graded lineman via PFF with a 44.2 overall, a 39.8 run block and a 60.1 pass block. He allowed 1 hurry and 1 pressure. Now, I'm not going to lie. It's a little weird that he was the worst graded lineman since every other lineman, all 4 other linemen on the Packers in this game, all allowed more pressures than him. But I don't necessarily think his extremely low grade is because of the pass game. Now, although he only had a 60.1 pass block grade, that 39.8 run block grade, he just didn't do well at all in the run game. And I'll say what I've said in every other video when I talk about Bryce Newman on the losers segment. Once David Bakhtiari comes back, and at this point Elgton Jenkins comes back, once those both guys come back, as I say every other video, David Bakhtiari is obviously going to be moving or going to be staying at that left tackle spot. No questions asked. What they do with Elgton Jenkins, they might throw him at right tackle. My best guess, he's going to be put to left guard. That leaves 1 guard spot between Newman and Runyon, and I think Runyon has it. Runyon will move over to that right guard. The only way I could see the Packers keeping Bryce Newman at the starter spot is because he's been playing right guard and Runyon's been playing left guard, and maybe they just want to keep guys where they're at, but we'll see. So now let's flip it over to the defensive side for this week, and let's start with the winners and Kingsley Keke. He finally showed up. I finally don't have to eat crow on Kingsley Keke for at least a week. Keke was the highest graded Packers defender this week and his highest grade of his career, a 91.3 overall. Last year he had a 90.2 against San Francisco 49ers, but his highest grade all time for his career with a 91.7 pass rush grade, a 70.5 tackle grade, and a 59.5 run defense grade. Kingsley Keke had 2 pressures, 1 sack, 1 forced fumble, 1 hurry, 1 stop, and 30 total snaps. And as we saw, Kingsley Keke created that big-time play, strip sacking Big Ben, allowing the Packers to start with the ball in very, very good field position. And I really hope this game gained a lot of momentum for Keke, and he continues this up and continues to dominate. Because if Keke can continue to play like this defensive line can be extremely dangerous. We know how Kenny Clark is playing second in pressures on the team. He's already a beast himself. So if Keke can kind of become that other guy on the defensive line that, starts creating pressure, stopping the run, just being disruptive in general, this front seven can get a lot better in Z's absence. Next up on this list is a guy who's becoming a very big fan favorite, and for all the right reasons. Devonte Campbell is on the winners side of this defensive grades for PFF for the 3rd week in a row, who's been an excellent add to this defense so far. This was also Campbell's highest grade thus far this year with an 84.4 overall, which included a 76.7 run defense grade, an 81.4 tackle grade, a 70.3 pass rush grade, and a 78.6 cover grade. He had 1 pressure, 7 tackles, 0 missed tackles, and 2 stops. He was targeted 5 times, but only allowed 2 receptions for 13 yards and a quarterback rating of 47.9. And I've said things similar in other videos. This is finally just a breath of fresh air at linebacker. Finally a linebacker that can play consistently sideline to sideline. Campbell is now the 5th highest graded inside linebacker in the NFL. He's 3rd highest with 100-plus snaps, and if we take it a step further and go 200-plus snaps, Devonte Campbell is the highest graded PFF linebacker, inside linebacker in the entire NFL. And another crazy important thing to note, he's played every single defensive snap this year for the Green Bay Packers. And I truly think Devonte Campbell is the most underrated NFL free agent signing so far this year. Last but not least, on the defensive winner side, we have Rashaan Gary, who's been stepping up as a full-time starter in Zadarius Smith's absence. He was the 3rd highest graded Packers defender this week with a 78.2 overall grade, a 78.0 run defense grade, 78.5 tackle grade, and a 73.4 pass rush grade. He had 3 total pressures, which puts him above Kenny Clark now for first on the team with 16 total pressures this year. In this game, he also had 1 sack, 3 tackles, 0 missed tackles, and 3 stops. And we all saw his 1 sack where he literally sacked Big Ben through and over the top of 1 lineman. I believe I've seen only a handful or even a couple players in history ever do that. I remember, it might have been 10 plus years ago, I saw Jared Allen do it. He sacked a guy while reaching around a lineman and kind of sacked the lineman and the quarterback at the same time. Rashaan Gary did it this game, just an insane sack. And Rashaan Gary is really becoming a pivotal part in this Green Bay Packers defense. So I want to ask one thing: where are all the Rashaan Gary haters at? Now moving on to the losers on the defensive side of the ball, and first up we have Ty Summers. Yet another pretty terrible game. The little snaps he did have, he was really getting pushed around. Now don't get me wrong, Ty Summers is a pretty solid special teams player, but once he gets put at inside linebacker, it goes downhill pretty quickly. He was the lowest graded defender on the Green Bay Packers this week with a 36.5 overall grade, which included a 38.1 run defense grade, a 74.9 tackle grade, and a 61.4 cover grade. And his only recorded stat was one single tackle, so that's probably why his tackle grade was a 74.9. So hopefully Chris Barnes can return and play next week, because Ty Summers has not been playing good at inside linebacker, and even Oren Burks, who got the start because Chris Barnes was out, didn't play well in this game either. So since I mentioned it, let's talk about Oren Burks. He had a good game against San Francisco, but against Pittsburgh, not so much. And this is the game where he got the start, and he came up with a 51.2 overall grade, a 56.0 run defense grade, a atrocious 29.4 tackle grade, 59.1 pass rush grade, and a 52.2 cover grade. And like I said, he was just pretty atrocious in the tackling game. He recorded 4 total tackles, but missed 2 tackles. He also allowed 3 receptions on 4 targets for 15 yards. And as I said, just not a great performance compared to last game, where he had a 78.0 overall grade against the San Francisco 49ers. I expected him to play a bit better. I didn't expect his grade to be this low. I didn't expect him to play this bad. I'm just glad we have Devonte Campbell. All right, so now for this part, I kind of want to talk about Eric Stokes, and I kind of want to add an asterisk to this because I don't necessarily want to include him in the losers bracket, although he didn't have a good PFF grade. I just want to talk about how Eric Stokes played in this game, because some people on one side think he played really well, and a lot of other people on another side think he played pretty bad. So PFF was on the side that he didn't play good at all. His grade this week was a 44.4 overall, his lowest on the year, a 48.4 tackle grade, and a 41.0 cover grade. I, for one, think the defensive scheme last week against the Steelers didn't help Eric Stokes at all. And I think he graded so low and gave up so many catches because the Steelers were just attacking the fact that the weak side corner, which was Eric Stokes, was lining 7+ yards off the line of scrimmage every single play, or at least like 95% of the time. And the Steelers saw that, Big Ben saw that, and they just went to quick out routes to Deontay Johnson and some other receivers, 5-yard out routes, and it was an easy completion every time. And I think Eric Stokes' grade is also pretty low because he also did miss 2 tackles after those out routes were completed. Eric Stokes was targeted an insane 15 times. He allowed 10 receptions for 82 yards, but actually he only allowed a 52.6 quarterback rating, which is really good. So to see, on one hand, when you see, he allowed 10 receptions, but it really wasn't for that many yards. The average wasn't high. And then also at the end there, he got that really nice interception. And like I said, I wouldn't really call Eric Stokes a loser here. I just think he was really grounded by the defensive scheme. I would like to see Eric Stokes in the press more, and he might get the capability to do that. It depends how long Jaire Alexander is out, because when I was watching the scheme last week, if you looked on the strong side where Jaire was lining up before he got hurt, he was pressing almost every play, and then on the opposite side, the weak side, Eric Stokes was 7 yards off the ball. So if Jaire Alexander is out for extended period of time, I'm wondering if they're going to move Eric Stokes to the strong side, or if they'll put Kevin King over there, which I don't necessarily want. Don't want to give him too much to do. But hopefully we don't have to talk about that, and Jaire Alexander is all good to go and hopefully doesn't miss much, if any, time. So that about does it for today's video. Those were the winners and losers, the highest and lowest grades for the Green Bay Packers via PFF versus the Pittsburgh Steelers there in Week 4. So let me know down in the comments what you think of these grades. Do you agree with them? Do you disagree with them? And on that note, I'll catch you on the next one. As always, go Pack Go.